Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Glad You Asked. We're back again. I've got Alex here.
Howdy.
And we have a wonderful special guest. Shirley Klump has joined us here in studio.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, everyone, as always, sit back, listen, laugh, and learn here on I'm Glad You Asked. All right, everyone. So, again, welcome back to the show. As we mentioned, we have a wonderful special guest, Shirley Klump. Let me tell you a little bit about Shirley. She is actually one of our current board members here at VMY SEMO. She is also one of the original founders of VMY SEMO here in Southeast Missouri. So thank you for the groundwork that you laid that Alex and I are very fortunate and blessed to help carry forward. And last and certainly not least, a spiritual director. So today's topic we're going to be talking about is discernment. Why is discernment so important, and how can we get better at it in our daily life? So that's our big topic. But before we get there, for all our current listeners and for anyone who's new, we do a little section here called Rapid Fire so people get to know new people. So Shirley, here we've got a couple questions for you.
I got my shield on.
I got my shield on. Okay. What is your favorite flavor of ice cream?
Pecan.
Pecan. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. What's your favorite color?
Red.
Favorite movie?
None.
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 Interesting. Okay. What was your first car?
Oh my gosh, it was a Malibu.
A Malibu.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. Awesome. And certainly last and not least, who is your favorite saint and why?
Oh, Saint Mother Teresa.
Oh, really?
Because she was such a gutsy person.
Okay, there we go.
That she was.
There you go. Well, everyone, thank you, Shirley. That was wonderful. Again, today's topic, discernment. What is discernment? How can we become better at it? So I'm gonna go to Alex first. Again, our director of youth ministry here in VMY SEMO. So Alex, you want to kind of start off our conversation here for us?
Sure.
All right, great.
Absolutely. This is great. Discernment.
Mm-hmm.
So the one of the reasons we wanted to cover this topic is because discernment is a little bit more than what people think of.
Mm-hmm.
And when you think of the word discernment, the first thing that comes to mind is vocation,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
You know, discernment, and most often used in a sense would be I'm discerning the religious life, or I'm discerning the priesthood.
Mm-hmm.
So you're using it as a verb. I guess we get technical here. It's a verb, so it's an action.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you're doing something, but it's something that it's not just for figuring out what you want to do for a living,
Mm-hmm.
or what your vocation is, meaning marriage, single life,
Mm-hmm.
religious life.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to break down, like, how do we use discernment every day? And people are doing this every day. They just don't realize maybe that's discernment.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the best ways, well, first of all, for a kind of a definition of discernment, I'll turn that over to Shirley to kind of explain a little bit, like, in what does that even mean, this word discernment? Like, if you're discerning the religious life, obviously you're...
Well, a lot of times, when people ask me a lot of times about spiritual direction, like what is spiritual direction? What do I need spiritual direction for? It really is just to be able to hone your discernment. It's be able to put God in the middle of your life.
Okay.
And actually, by discerning, it's a little different than decisions. Decisions is, do I want, pizza or do I want spaghetti? That's pretty easy.
Spaghetti.
Yeah, spaghetti. You have to ask me each day. But when you're discerning, it's really a movement of the soul. It's something that you encounter God in. And so you invite him into that decision making. And that's the difference. And that's where you grow in spirituality, because you have to discern with God.
And that's very
Nice.
true. And I think one of the things, and we talked about it a little bit before the show, something so important to that is, to really have a relationship. You need to have a relationship with God. He needs to be a part. And that's through prayer, through scripture study, through living the sacraments, going to mass. These are all the different things that impact and can positively benefit people in their discernment process. But Alex, tell us a little bit more. I mean, what are some of the things that you've seen or are using in just daily discernment for
in
people?
Daily discernment?
Yeah.
Well, first I wanted to, maybe if we could start with, I like what Shirley was saying about some things are decisions and some are discernment.
Mm-hmm.
What are some things, Shirley, that need to be discerned more than, like where it's, because I think you can over analyze decisions,
Mm-hmm.
or you can under discern, where you just don't think enough about it, maybe. And I tended to err on the side of over analyzing situations to try to make the perfect choice, right? And something that hit me in college was Cardinal Newman said something along the lines of, if you discern too much, you'll do nothing. Like, you'll never get anything done if you spend too much time thinking about what's the perfect right thing to do. So what are decisions that need discernment versus just decisions like pizza versus spaghetti?
Well, I mean, I think it's probably discernment. Discernment is good if you start small, because then whenever you get to a larger decision, then you've already got the hang of how to discern. And not that it always comes easy, because it doesn't. Sometimes it requires more prayer. But sometimes it requires just standing still, but you can't stand still forever. So what are some of the things? I mean, I just recently, bought a car, and I discerned what kind of car I needed, and some of it was decisions and some of it was discernment. But what the difference was is that I brought God into the mix. And so I sat down one day and I said, God, this is what I want. I don't want this is what I want. This is what I don't want. And what do you think? What do you want me to have? And I felt a sense of peace. I was moved with my soul that the used car that I was searching for was the wiser, the more frugal choice for me at this time. And so I sat tight and I waited upon the Lord, and He showed it to me right down the road. I mean, right across the street here at the auto place. Was exactly the car I was looking for.
Wow.
It had the right features. It was right cost. It was everything. Right color. It was everything. And I think that sometimes we go blindly through life without bringing the Lord into our conversations. As simple as they are. I mean, I could have bought a car without God. I could have.
Sure, absolutely.
And it probably would have ran just fine. But what for? Whenever we want to try to base our life on the Lord. So then when it comes to bigger decisions, it's easier because you have a history to be able to look at, to be able to watch and see, oh, that one time that I ran out there and jumped on this and messed everything up. Yeah, it was probably more than one time.
Sure.
But yeah, so you don't want to do that. So you learn those things by having a relationship.
Sure. Well, it sounds like too, one of the things that at least I'm hearing there is one of a great gift that God gives you in the discernment process, if you include God, which is consolation.
Peace.
The peace, exactly. That you are comfortable. There's that sense of there's no foreboding, there's no worry, there's no anxiety, there's never buyer's remorse, and I think that again, a great example of that, just as we talk. What other things do you again, as a spiritual director, I mean, I have a spiritual director. Alex, you have one.
I do.
And you have one, Shirley?
Mine
are one.
Mine's really good.
Really?
Yes, we're required to have a spiritual director.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So as one, you are required to have one.
Oh,
okay.
Makes sense.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
But when I was in youth ministry, that's when I sought a spiritual director, because I felt
really?
like any time that I was responsible for leading people to Christ in whatever aspect, but in a larger sense, because there were more than just me to be concerned about, which there always is in life, actually. But as the numbers grew, I felt more committed that I needed to understand what was happening in my life and where God was leading the ministry. So that's when I sought one.
Wow. Well, Alex, when did you see when did you seek out one?
Same. When I became a youth minister, they kind of said you'd be crazy to not have one.
Really?
Because, like Shirley said, the responsibility. You need to be able to be a very clear mind decision maker.
Sure.
And when you're seeing a spiritual director, you're becoming more and more aware of yourself. And more aware of where God is working, and that's really, really important.
Okay.
Because you can see where God's working in the ministry and where He's not, and which direction you should head. But also you got to kind of see where the people you're working for are being led. So you're kind of got to be able to discern God's movement, basically.
Sure. No,
so
absolutely.
whenever I became one, I saw one out. Guess I was kind of scared before that because I guess maybe it was intimidating, the idea of someone helping me analyze myself that hard, you know?
That's
or maybe I just didn't also know where to get one. I didn't know kind of where I could find one.
Sure. My first one was back in Ohio. Father Ramon. He was our parish administrator. He's from the Sons of the Immaculate Conception. It's a religious order originally from the Philippines. Anyway, Father Ramon was mine. I was actually discerning, what to do with regard to school and should I go back and potentially, career change, things like that. So, I began to just seek it out just with questions I had to just with regard to my faith and things like that. Now it's currently Father Alexander who has the Newman Center and Old St. Vincent down in Cape, and he's a great guy. And I think for me, one thing I love about my spiritual director is I can be extremely hard on myself or not hard enough, and he really does provide me great balance, because it's such an amazing blessing to sit down and go, okay, here's what I'm struggling with, and to be able to talk about it and get direction when you need it, and to be that vulnerable in front of someone who's not my spouse. It's one thing to be vulnerable with your spouse, but it's another thing to be vulnerable with a spiritual director too. I think there's some beauty in that. So for those who are listening, if you don't have one, seek one out. Your parish priest. There are many, many people. Shirley, is a great example of a member of the laity who has this amazing gift. So please, check out the resources in your parish to see if you don't have one. There are people out there who are gifted with this, and take advantage of it. It's an amazing blessing from God.
Well, the nice thing about spiritual direction, just on a personal level for myself, and I see it also with the people that come to me, is while you're expressing your concerns about yourself, you say things that you don't even hear yourself say. And a good spiritual director, at least mine does, sometimes just nails me. And she'll say, you just said. And I said, I didn't say that. Sure, yes, you did. You said, it's like, wow, I did say that. Yeah. And so often it's important. We all need friends to walk through life, and to hear us. Really to listen to us with their heart. And a good spiritual director can do that, and sometimes even see underneath what it is that you're really talking about. Because generally it's not the first thing that you begin to talk about. It's something deeper that is really the root of what you're wanting to change, or what you're wanting to seek, or whatever it is.
Sure.
But it's a deeper than the surface.
No, and I think it's a great point too, is that one thing that just jumped to my mind when you said that, to have someone to walk with us, I thought about Christ. He had disciples and he had the 12 apostles. He didn't pick one person. Right. He didn't just pick Peter. Peter was not alone. They were a community together after Christ had left. And I think that's something that, again, to your point, is so beautiful about spiritual direction, is that we're not alone in this. We're in this together. It's a process of faith development. And when you're struggling, you need that person to help maybe pick you up. Right.
Well, and discernment is a gift. And there's many gifts of the Spirit. That's just one of them.
So Alex, as we're talking and thinking about this, discernment, how is it how have you utilized it? How have you seen it in your own life?
Right. So I find that I'm able to make clearer, better decisions when I start my day with prayer. If I start my day already talking to God, and then praying about what's going to happen that day. I start praying that I have the grace for my job. I pray for the people I'm going to be around. And mine's, I love the rosary, but starting the day with prayer, if I don't do it, I'm already off. I feel like I'm a little off kilter with knowing where I'm being led throughout the day and what my mission is that day. So starting the day with prayer is something I find vital, even if it's small, or if I don't have the time to pray. What I found would be to do an active service in the morning. So perhaps it's like a cold shower, and offering that up if I'm getting ready and don't have time to truly do my regular rosary, doing some kind of work for the Lord and just offering that up as a prayer. Just getting things going on the right foot.
Sure.
And then I'll find time throughout the day to pray for what I need to pray for. But then kind of, I guess, getting into the nuts and bolts of how do you know where God's leading you? You know, I think that's a great question is how do you know, you know, like if somebody's just trying to figure that out, like after I pray, I usually feel inspired to do certain things, you know, and I think that's a great thing if we become inspired in a certain direction. Sometimes you just kind of feel it like, you know what, I really need to write a letter to recently I write them to my girlfriend because she loves receiving letters.
Oh, okay.
I really should write a letter instead of just turning on the TV.
Okay.
Or I feel inspired to do some kind of act of service. And you know, if it's service, then that's always a good fallback. Like, let's see, should I serve or should I, you know, do nothing? And so a lot of times I ask myself that question. All right, which one is more of an act of service? Of the two things I'm trying to decide between what I should spend my time doing maybe this morning. So sometimes you can feel it. I think that's one step.
Sure.
So I don't know if you wanted to interject into that thought.
You know, I think that's a really important thought, especially whenever you've discerned for a bit and you seem to get on the edge of making a decision of what it should be, which way you should turn, and then you step back again. You know, it's kind of like that. Oh, I don't know. You know, but during spiritual direction, and I think whenever you discern or analyze your discernment process, you'll see that there's a sense of joy or excitement or fulfillment sometime, and sometimes there's not. Well, God did not create us to be unhappy. He created us to live out our joy. And in serving him, that's where we feel that joy, that fulfillment. So yeah, you're right on, because if you're feeling that, you should, if it's in line with God's will, that's the path that he's choosing for you.
No, and I think that you know, again, it goes back to that consolation, that joy, that sense of peace.
Right.
You know, sometimes though, as you're discerning, you may not get that right away.
No.
You know, there may be more to that. There may be more questions yet you have to answer. So, what are the things that you both of you have maybe done in those instances?
You mean unanswered?
Unanswered, yeah.
You know, like
well, I'm not
should
really
I become a priest or should I stay single?
Correct.
Like in my situation.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Like,
yeah.
Stuff like that.
Well,
My girlfriend doesn't want me to become a priest right now.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. And I don't either. That's why we're still dating.
Okay.
But if you feel that, you should act on that and let your girlfriend know. And then if God wants you to be together, you'll get back.
Yeah.
It'll work back out.
Yeah.
But
Well,
the undecideds, those are tough for a lot of people my age in their 20s, you know, because whenever I have lots of, I guess every stage has big decisions, but you know, whenever you have big decisions like career, and well, I'm already done with college, but career, vocation, you know, single, dating, house, where you're gonna buy a house, where you're gonna build a house,
build a house, yeah,
yeah, big stuff that needs, you know, big decisions, and sometimes people my age can go crazy because when they don't have the answer, and they might be praying about it, they might be taking the right steps, and I think one skill to learn is to let go. Do what you can, which is pray about it, but then give God space to work and go with what you know at the time. You know, like I didn't enter the seminary anytime because I thought about it, but I didn't feel like I didn't see any real thing telling me to go there.
Sure.
God in prayer doesn't actually. I actually felt unease about it. Whenever I thought I should do it, I actually felt really uneasy about it, really discouraged.
Wow.
I was very saddened by the idea of not getting married.
Wow.
And I was going to make myself do it. without my mother's reason and telling me that seems kind of like a rash decision. Give it a little more time, and
Wow.
sometimes it just takes more time.
That's
But yeah,
right.
that and the discouragement turned out to be God's way of saying the joy was leading me towards the marriage. I was really excited about marriage and family life. So that I didn't realize was God's way of talking at that time.
Well, we have to remember God doesn't always hand everything over on a cake platter.
Sometimes I wish he would, though.
It's not reality. A lot of times when you have some things taken away from you, you think, what's this about? What's this about? I was trying to do the right thing.
Exactly.
But that's why it's so important to keep studying history and to keep looking back and to also see while you're looking back to see what's in front of you, because probably when something was taken away, something else is happening that needs your attention, and God knows you're the right one for it. And so, trust is such a big factor. Trust and relaxing. I mean, yes, we need to pray. We need to let him talk and us to shut up, and us to talk and he'll shut up. He'll listen. But after that, as we do that, we need to just look what's around us, and at our achievements, at our disappointments, at our joys, at our sorrows, and go, oh, he's turning me. Wow. Sometimes he slams the door pretty hard, and the old quote, he slams the door and opens a window or whatever. Yeah. That's okay. Because when he does, then you need to look up and look around and say, well, how can I serve you, Lord? Where are you moving me? And he will.
No, absolutely. And in my own personal experience, so I was discerning for quite a while the permanent diaconate. It was something I'd been praying about, and I had heard 2 homilies in Hawaii on 2 different islands, back-to-back weeks, about vocation and why these deacons had become, why these men had chosen to become permanent deacons. Amazing. The first guy was a 75-year-old Jewish man from Brooklyn, New York, on the Big Island of Hawaii, and now he's a permanent deacon in the Catholic Church. And his words that stuck with me the most were, "You'll never know where God will lead you if you just let go. You'll never regret it." And then he told everybody, about himself. And for me, again, as I was going through that process, what happened was the door closed because I couldn't. The diaconate school in Columbus at the time, the bishop only did 1 class every 4 years, so it was full. So I had to get some prerequisites for school to potentially look at the diaconate, and I ended up starting school. And what I found is not the diaconate, but my love for the study of theology, my love for doing this per se, to share the faith, to help educate people in the faith, whether that's through the podcast or an event that we do, or writing something, or whatever that is, being of service, helping the poor. It's living out the faith in a different way and helping educate in a different way. So at the time, I wasn't sure, and I began to, as you said, Shirley, look around. I got into school, I met the people, my classmates, and I began to look around at my environment, and I began to say, okay, Lord, why am I here? Was this really what you were calling me to? Was this really what I was supposed to get out of this experience? And I think, to me, I've yes, as Alex will tell you, I burned the candle at both ends of the stick way too many times. But the love of school, and I love it so much because I truly feel like I come to know myself better, but more importantly, I become closer to God, because I'm able to see where I can become better, and I see where I can be a teammate, a better coworker, a better husband, a better brother, a better friend, and most importantly, better for God in all of those areas. So,
but can I interject something?
Absolutely.
You just said was that you got to know yourself better. Not only did you get to know God better, but you got to know yourself better. But reflect on who made you. Yeah. And to go back to the Baltimore Catechism a little bit more, he made you in his likeness and his image. Yeah. So that's what you were doing. You were studying. Well, as you got to know him, you got to know you because you're the image and likeness of God.
And it's so beautiful to hear that. And thank you. But no,
You're welcome.
but no, and I mean that in honesty. I mean, I think in many ways, for the desire to pursue, I cannot talk today, pursue worldly objectives of, being successful. What does that really mean? I mean, it's,
I think it means being in the image and likeness of God myself.
Now, there you go. That's, I mean, and you know what? You're correct. I believe you're correct in that. But for me, it was, again, originally it was about pursuing these kind of worldly desires, a nice house, a nice car, success at work, a title, whatever it is, some kind of award. Whereas now, for me, what excites me is literally trying to make myself better to serve others better. And that's really what drives me every day.
Right.
So
awesome.
What are other, I guess,
steps?
Things
because we're kind of looking at what needs to be discerned and how, but are there further steps? So we're kind of,
There's one thing that I think that's very important and that will help you. And I've mentioned a little bit about this, about studying your past, but I don't know if you guys know what an examen is. I'm sure you do, where you actually go through the steps. It's Ignatian spirituality, where you go to the steps and you just praise God for the best things that happened that day, the beautiful things He's brought you, the things that you've been able to contribute to the world, and then you go through the steps and maybe the lesser things, that maybe the things that you contemplate. How should I maybe reacted differently in this situation? Or maybe I should have avoided this or that altogether. Or maybe I should have went forward and I held back, Maybe I didn't go across the road when I should have helped that person. So, it's important because you have to hone the skill of noticing. And if you don't notice, then you can't grow. And so and the next day, it's like you said, you ended up where I was going to be a deacon. Well, no, I'm not, but I really like,
Exactly.
And so here you are sitting across the table. I would have never guessed. You would have never guessed. But it's baby steps, and that's what God's going to do. But it's really invoking the Holy Spirit every day to be able to give you the eyes and the heart and the ears to see and to do and to work and to live His will. What's going on here really, really, because we can run through the grocery store or we can have an experience in the grocery store, and it doesn't always happen, but the awareness is, and just noticing is so vital.
So you're talking like a daily examine at the end of each day kind of thing, or?
Well, I know some people that do it 3 times a day.
Wow.
Yeah. Or at least
That's
they'll do
good.
it at lunchtime, and they'll do it in the evening or right before bed.
I think with and I pulled it up here. So the give thanks, pray for light, review the day,
right.
Look at what's wrong, and then the resolution for your day to come.
Right.
Where do you need God today? So in a lot of ways, you're doing that, with your morning prayer that you mentioned. You don't feel like you start off the day right, or it's not going to go well. You're just choosing to do it in the day. I do mine in the evening because I sit back and go, okay, Lord, thank you for this day. And I go through the process, and then I always kind of get to the, look at look at what's wrong. And anyway, so yes, I do mine at the end of the day, and I think that it just allows me a better chance to really reflect throughout the day. And I even begin to ask myself, were there times I missed God? Were there instances where God made Himself known that I just missed? And I think that that's really helped me just grow in general, and really finding Christ in others. Because again, I'm taking the time to really reflect and really look at the day, the people I met, how I interacted, all of that, to better understand, okay, was it a missed opportunity too? Did I not see it? Why didn't I see it? What was preventing me from seeing it? I also look to see what those barriers are. What are the obstacles, whether that's, something I'm feeling, something I'm thinking, something I'm going through physically, whatever that is. I try to find those barriers and begin to find and pray for relief in those areas too. So if I'm, doubting myself, or if I'm questioning myself or unsure, I try to offer that to God, to say, Lord, I'm really struggling here. And, I need some strength. I need some guidance. And I try to be more patient. But then, too, I turn around and I'll reach out to the people that, I have, help from. whether it's work related. I was calling you last night on the way home, and I was like, we'll talk about it today. I mean, it's just another great example of, hey, I had this idea. I want to run it past a couple people, want to get your input, want to get your feedback before, I go further with it. And again, I've just found that to be a better process for myself.
Well, and another part that I do after I get done with that is I think about my tomorrow, or maybe even my weekend. If there's something you've been discerning and you know that tomorrow may be part of that process, you may be with those people or in that situation or however it is, then I really kind of prayerfully consider tomorrow according to what I maybe have slipped up on in the past or maybe done well. I mean, whatever, but I picture me and then I invite God in that time tomorrow to be with me, to keep my eyes open, my heart open, so that I can actually see him at work and not have to go back at night and say, oh, I messed that up. I wasn't even looking, or paying attention, or where were you,
Where were you at?
Yeah. I mean, I guess I forgot to notice you were in the room, So it helps to go prepared. We prepare for everything.
Right. That's how I always kind of wondered. I guess it works for some people. Everybody's different. But people who say, I do most of my praying at the end of the day, I always think, I've always thought, man, like, isn't it too late? Like, everything you did today already happened. Don't you want to pray before you do all that stuff? Yeah. Unless they're praying for tomorrow. But I always thought, man, I can't do that because, like, there's nothing left to pray about. Everything,
already happened.
Yeah, it already happened. I'll pray about it tomorrow, Yeah. Job's done.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Just a thought. I always encourage people to pray in the morning.
I think it's balanced. Start your day with prayer. I mean, we say the Missioner's Prayer every morning before we begin work.
Right.
And it's something that I've come to really love and enjoy. I think it does really help ground me for the day. Helps me be very reflective. But again, I take that time at night to really just look back on to see, okay, where did I fail? Where did I?
Sure. Right.
And I don't want to make that sound negative. I mean, it just becomes
realistic.
It's realistic. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. And I think also, any athlete out there who might be listening, any performer who, whether you're a musician or you like to act, you practice. And what I found is prayer for me is a chance to go back and reflect, kind of like I'm practicing. Like, well, if I'm given the opportunity tomorrow in the same situation, how am I going to be different?
Right.
And it's a way for me to kind of
just like how you watch film.
Yeah.
From your past games.
Yeah.
Well, and Mike, just you mentioning the missioner prayer, that is a prayer of discernment. Divine Savior, transform me into yourself. I mean, that's what you're asking when you're asking to discern is help me walk like you walk. So the whole prayer is a discernment prayer.
Shirley, what if you were sitting with someone who was new to spiritual direction, or just more importantly, wants to discern better? What are the 3 things you would tell that individual to start? How to start?
If they were in spiritual direction,
or just
if they were walking down the street.
Down the street. Someone here, and you see them in church. You're like, man, I'm just really struggling and making these decisions.
I would say I've had an hour of adoration for the last 20 years, and I never even realized it was that long. But anyway, I would say get in the practice of, and it doesn't have to be in an adoration chapel, but someplace. Make a you place in your home or wherever, and spend 10 minutes a day talking to God. And it can be as stupid as buying the car, I mean, just pour out what's in your life, and then spend 10 minutes not talking to God and saying, okay, it's your turn. And then every morning when you get up, you say, Holy Spirit, let me see you and you lead me. And then you're good.
Wow.
You're good.
Wow.
If you sincerely do those 3 things. I'll tell you, I took 10 minutes a day as a New Year's Eve resolution one time. The year after my father died, I think I probably told you this. I took 10 minutes to just be with God. And a lot of times I didn't even feel like like talking because
Wow.
I was just not in a really good frame of mind, I guess.
Sure.
And so I sat and I thought, okay, God, here I am. And it was the most amazing 10 minutes. And it has grown to a daily thing of lots and lots more prayer and time. And there was a time that after an hour, I didn't want to get up, you know? So he'll meet you.
Yeah. Is it kind of just like, maybe, I think I know what you're talking about, where he just kind of starts to put these thoughts and dreams kind of start streaming through, like beautiful ideas and thoughts and dreams. And
yeah, or he lets you actually see like the growth of his creation, or the birds that so freely just trust, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just that simple thing, and all it is that you just open the door. That's all you did. You know, it isn't really a prayer as much as it's just a prayer of silence. Yeah,
just being.
Just being.
Absolutely. Thomas Keating talks a lot about centering prayer, or the sound, the beauty of silence,
living in the moment.
And it's just resting in God is how he would often put it, to literally rest in God, you know. And so for me, I often just sit down, close my eyes, and just imagine, you know, the cross, or I think just picture the Eucharist. That's it. And amazing how my mind will wander to the shopping list, and the beauty is I come back to Christ every time, you know, through the Eucharist, just that image of the Eucharist, and it's kind of recentering me and just resting quietly. You know, one of the things I've always tried to do since I've, you know, in my own way of discerning is, does this decision bring me closer to God or not?
Right.
And it sounds cliche, but it's really true. And for me in my own personal life, and, you know, oh, well, does buying this new suit really bring me closer to God?
Right.
You know, well, not necessarily. It maybe makes me feel better about myself. Ego, got to work on that. You know, whatever it is. I
was wondering about that suit you wore yesterday. Just kidding.
Hey, I got the shirt here. I'm telling you.
Oh, yeah. Right. Library Exchange has some great deals.
It does, absolutely.
You know, another thing that's really helpful too is it's when I can't. I'm having a brain fade.
It's okay. It happens to me all the time here.
It's a good place for it.
You know, I sit here. I'm like, hey, Alex, what was I doing a minute ago? I'm like, I don't know. What are you talking about?
Okay, I'm back. It's the serenity prayer. You know, accept the things I cannot change the things I can, and know the difference. And it maybe isn't something you want to change or even to accept, but if you use that same rule in any decision, you know, it kind of helps you, because you right away know, maybe that's not the best choice, you know, of company or of purchases or of career choices or people even to date, you know. It might not be the best choice. I mean, not if you're looking for somebody forever, you know. So it's a good rule.
That's a great one. What about you, Alex?
I'm good, thank you. How are you, Mike?
Our comedy relief. God love them. God love them. Well, you know, again, everyone, want to first thank you for taking some time to listen. Special thanks to Shirley. Before we go, any last advice that you really want to give to us here about this topic of discernment?
There's just one thing I want to say at the end, was to don't expect to be good at it overnight.
Oh.
Good discernment really takes it's a lifelong process. And a good spiritual friend, a good spiritual director can listen, can hear, can reflect back. It's nice to have somebody that you can grow with. That's
wonderful. And that's great advice. And again, it is something that, again, we can all get better at. And again, it's not a solution that we're going to have today. To your point, it's something we will grow, but more importantly, as we discern better, we'll be that much closer to God.
Right.
So,
amen.
But again, everyone, thank you for being here. Be sure to like and subscribe to our podcast. They can be found on Apple, Spotify, Google, iHeartRadio, so many different platforms. Again, special thank you to Shirley for being with us today. Great job. Alex, thank you as always, my buddy. It's always fun doing these shows together. So until next time, keep praying, and we'll see you again on I'm Glad You Asked.